Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Tony with Red Cyber Dragon coming to you from the beautiful East Coast of the United States. It is currently 9 degrees centigrade outside, and I am surprisingly not cold in this room this morning. I hope everybody's having a good day. I really do. Uh, wherever you are, wherever you're coming to us from. Yeah, so yesterday we were learning some Bootstrap 5. And I think we're going to continue with that today, unless somebody, comes in and wants to do something else, wants to learn something else. But we are going to stick with coding today and get through, hopefully, some more Bootstrap. Obviously, I got both chats open. I got YouTube and I got Twitch chat open, so feel free to pop into chat and let me know what you think. Or if you have any advice. I got some good advice yesterday from some people helping me with Bootstrap. I'm a Python developer. I don't really do a whole lot of front end development, at least not, officially learning the frameworks and stuff. I've sort of BS'd my way through I've BS'd my way through Bootstrap over the years. And I want to actually just sit down for a few hours and learn it and learn the techniques. I've already learned a lot. So, that's really great. And yeah, we'll continue on. So let's do it. The Linux Mac update is groundbreaking for Mac. Oh, I kind of want to watch that. Oh, it comes on at 7 a.m. All right. We'll watch Andrew Tsai's video later.
Course, we're going to talk.
Okay, so last time let's do how I had it yesterday. Here. Over here. You can see the whole screen. You can see this. All right, if anyone is in chat and can't see, please let me know. Also, I changed my audio bitrate a little bit this morning, so please let me know if you can hear me as well, because that is important to me. All right? Okay, so here we go.
Talk about how to set up Bootstrap and all of the, well, not all of them, but most of the common classes that you'll be using as far as navbar. Grab this entire on this. I want to show it's primary. We actually want that to be primary, and I mean you can use whatever colors you'd like, but I think that looks pretty good. So we want two more of these. So what I'm going to do is grab. So we already have the call MDs. Let's just grab everything within this call MD. So basically the card.
So this is what we have so far. You can see I've edited it a little bit to make it more my aesthetic. But you can see we have a responsive page here, and this is more than I understood before, and it's good on mobile, and that's fucking awesome, and I love that. So here we go. Keep going.
And let's go to the second one. Paste that in, and then we're going to change some things up here. Let's change the text to hybrid. we're going to change the icon from laptop to, let's say, person-square. And I also want to change the color. Let's do text, sorry, BG secondary, which by default is like a gray, dark gray. And then for the link here, let's do BTN dark. Okay, so we'll check that out. Good. And then the last one is going to be, you know, the same style as the first one. We already have that in the clipboard, so I'm going to go right down here and paste that in. And then let's change virtual to in person. Let's change the icon to BI-people. There we go. Okay, so this is coming along. The next thing we want is basically these two. So learn the fundamentals.
All right, so here's where we left off yesterday.
Learn React with these images. And we're just going to use the grid here as well and just have two columns. Of course, you could use Flexbox if you wanted to. But let's go under this section here, and we'll just say learn sections.
So the way I'm doing this, at least until I find a better way, is to just let him talk through the section and then go back and play it as I do it, because I want to get an overview of it first and then try.
So let's do section and class of P-5. This one is going to be it's just going to have the light background, so I think that's just fine, just P5. And we also want to give this an ID because we want the navigation to take us down to here. So remember, the navigation we have pointing to an ID called learn. And then let's have our container.
All right, so the section, we start with the section.
We'll do a row.
Container.
And as far as alignment, I want to align items center. So I want to center it vertically, right? The text and all that. And then let's also do justify dash content. We'll do between the two items. Jesus, I can't type today. All right, so if we save that, we're not going to see anything just yet. Oh, one more thing I just want to show you on very small screens, the columns. If you want to have space in between here, I'm just going to go right back up to the row we created in the boxes, which is right here. And I'm going to add G-4. So what that does is it gives it a gap, and it gives it a gap all the way around. You can also do GY for just gap this way and GX for just gap that way. But
I was wondering what that was. G4. Did I put that in there? -4. Row text center gap is 4. Okay, that's good to know.
Want to do that just to separate them up a bit. So basically, I feel like Bootstrap 5 is getting closer to like Tailwind, where they give you these really low-level classes. But in addition to that, you have, you know, cards and alerts and all that. So I'm really liking Bootstrap 5. I really like Tailwinds as well, but you know, Bootstrap.
Maybe we'll go and learn Tailwind because I hear that has some benefits. So I don't know. We'll see.
5, you don't actually have to have as many classes, and there's already some pre-made styles. The downside is it can look a little bootstrappy, especially if you're not changing up the main colors and all that. Actually, yeah, that's good. Yeah. All right, so let's continue on. So we have our learn sections. We're going to put inside here. So this is our grid row. And then we want to have our two columns. So the first one, let's do call. We're just going to do call MD. And this is going to be an image. So the image is going to be an image / fundamentals. And we want to make sure we add a class of image fluid so it stays in its container. So fluid. And then underneath that div, we'll have another call-md. And I'm actually going to add padding on this. So So P5, and this is going to be the content, which is going to be first in H2. We'll say learn the fundamentals. And then under the H2, let's do a paragraph with the class of lead, which will make it a little bigger. We'll do lorem 15. And then let's do another paragraph under that. We'll do lorem, let's say 30. Let's see what that looks like. All right, so you can see they're side by side. We have the text over here. And then I just want to have a button underneath, or a link formatted as a button. So under the paragraph, let's do A with BTN, and we'll do BTN-light here. And let's do a margin top just to push the button down a little bit, or the link down a little bit. And inside the A tag, I want a read more. And I'm also going to put a chevron icon right before it. So we'll do I.bi, and we want bi-chevron-right.
The icon thing is cool.
All right, let's see what that looks like. Good.
I think the button should probably be the primary color.
And it should stack. Yeah, because we did call MD, not just call. So that's pretty good. Now the next one is going to be similar, so I'm going to just grab this entire section. Copy that, paste that here. And then let's change, or let's add BG dark to this section. And you can see how we're kind of piecing in all these sections. That's how I like to build websites like this.
The section thing is definitely helpful. I like that a lot, that he's using them, because it can be really confusing.
So we're going to do BG dark, and let's see what else we want to do. We're going to change the image here to the React. Now, I actually want the image to go on the other side, so I'm going to grab this div, the call div with the image, cut that, and put it underneath this call div, which ends right here. So we'll place that there. And then let's change the text here to learn React.
That I still refuse to do.
I think that's it. Let's save that, see what that looks like.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, so the text, obviously we want that to show. So BG dark, let's also do text dash light. All right, I think that's, yeah, same thing. Cool. So those are pretty easy. Next thing we want to do is the questions, which is going to be this right here. We're going to use the accordion. So let's.
All right, so he finished that section, so let's do it. I think, you know what? Honestly, I think we can use his GitHub code. I think that's probably easier. But I'm going to talk through it as I do it. Showcase, newsletter, boxes, learn sections. All right, so for the learn section, we got section dot class, no, sorry, dot P5, P-5, okay. ID equals learn. Okay, then we got a container. And then a row, align item center, row dot align dash items dash center. Okay, for frick's sake, man. Why is this always a problem with DJ Lint? Like, I like DJ Lint, but oh my god, the extension is driving me nuts. I'm writing HTML. You don't need to be here. Okay, I think I disabled it earlier. Align item center dot justify content between. All right, justify content between. All right, so that's the row. And we'll make a column. Column MD. And we'll put an image in there. img.img fluid. Source equals img slash fundamentals. Alt equals fundies. Okay, so that's everything that should go in there. And then we need another column. MD with a padding 5. H2. Learn the fundamentals. Okay. Lead. Okay, now we write the lead. Oh no. P dot lead. Lorem 20. What's the matter? Thank you for the follow. Rivera Riverafo. Not sure how to pronounce that. Feel free to correct me. What's up with prettier? Formatting. What is the issue? Just do it with the other thing then. Fine. Everything is just so messed up in VS Code sometimes. It annoys the shit out of me. Okay. All right, so that's the lead. And then what we got? A button. A dot btn dot btn danger margin top is 3. Oops. Mt dash 3. href is nowhere. And the button should say, I dot bi dash chevron dash right. Read more. I don't think that's what it's supposed to look like, is it? What did I miss? I put it in the wrong column, and it was below. Okay, looks good, right? Oh. Oh, okay.
The next thing we want is basically these two. So learn the fundamentals, learn React with these images. And we're just going to use the grid here as well and just have two columns. Of course, you could use Flexbox if you wanted to. But let's go under this section here and we'll just say learn sections. So let's do section and class of P-5. This one is going to be, and then let's change the text here to learn React. And
okay, so
let's save that, see what that looks like. Okay, so the text, obviously we want that to show. So BG dark, let's also do text dash light. All right.
BG dash dark, text dash light. So why didn't we use a Flexbox?
I think that's, yeah.
Really aligned, is it? Or is it? Yeah, I guess it is.
Same thing. Cool. So those are pretty easy. Next thing we want to do is the questions, which is going to be this right here. We're going to use the accordion. So let's move on to that. We'll say question.
I thought there was something wrong with my bitrate, and it turns out it was just set too high. But I don't even think it was causing a problem. But I just like seeing the screen color on my bitrate.
Accordion. Is that how you spell accordion? No, it's an O. All right, so let's say section, and we're going to give this a class of P5, just like all the rest of our sections. But I'm also going to give it an ID for the menu, and I'll show you that in a second. So let's say questions. And I just want to save this and show you that if I click on the menu, if I click on this, this is going to go to learn, and notice how it goes down there nice and smoothly, which just happens by default because we used a specific class in our navbar, which was, where is it? We used it on the UL. No, we didn't. Wait a minute.
On the nav
Did
link.
we even add it? Maybe we don't even need to use that class. I thought we had a scroll class. I could have swore we added that. Maybe we didn't. Oh, I guess you don't need it. I thought you needed a specific class for that to happen. But I guess not. I guess it just happens by default, which is pretty cool. But one thing I do want to do is fix the navbar to the top since we have this type of navigation. And that's really easy. All we have to do is add a specific class onto our navbar called fixed-top. So now the navbar will just stay there and we can just kind of, navigate
I like
around.
that.
If we click on this, it'll bring us to the top. Now, one issue we have See how it doesn't account for the space here? So her head is now under the nav bar. So to fix that, I'm going to go into Style CSS, and I'm going to say body, and then I'm going to use the pseudo selector before, and let's say display block. Now when you use before or after, you have to add the content. We don't actually want to put any content in there, so just empty. And then we're going to add a height of, let's say, 60 pixels.
Display.
So basically it'll add like a ghost element of 60 pixels so that it pushes it back down. All right,
yeah,
so
I'm still not writing this. I'm going to copy it. Sorry, CSS is the only thing it's okay to copy. Change my mind.
Boxes, learn sections, accordion. Now this is going to be quite a bit of markup, so I'm trying to decide if I want to copy and paste some of this. No, we'll just type it out. It's not too bad, because we can just, once we have one question, we can just copy it, paste it, and just change the text. So let's add a container, and we're going to have a heading. So we're going to use H2. I want this to be centered, so text dash center. And let's add margin bottom 4, and this is going to say frequently asked questions. Save that. Good. So we see the heading down here, and then underneath the H2, we're going to have our accordion. So we want to give this a class of accordion, and there's different types. We'll just go ahead and take a look at this. So we have like this style where it has the heading here, it has a border. I want to use the flush version, which looks like this. I think it looks a little cleaner. So we do want to use the accordion flush. Actually, I guess maybe we could just copy this. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, you know
it
what?
did work.
I'm just going to grab this, and then we'll just kind of customize it.
Sorry, I know I'm going off script a little here, but I just want to check something. Questions, instructors. Instructors.
So right here under the H2, I'm going to paste that in, and if we save that, we should see an accordion. Okay, so that works. All right.
I'm definitely
So
copying the
change
text.
some of the content here. Let's go up to the first one. So we have this div here with accordion flush. This wraps everything. And for, let's see, the ID, instead of accordion flush example, I'm gonna Command D and select all of those, the accordion flush example, and just change that ID to questions, because it makes more sense, and it should still work fine. And then let's see, we want to go to the first item here. I guess we could put a comment. We'll just say item 1. So each div with the accordion item is a specific item. So this one here would be item 2. And I think we have, what, 3 total? Item 3. No, there's another one. No, that's 3. No, there's only 3. All right, so let's go to item 1. And we're going to keep accordion item, keep the header. We have the button. Again, I'm going to get rid of the accessibility attributes just to avoid any confusion. So get rid of that. Get rid of these.
Instructors. Okay, we still got the instructors contact name, phone, footer.
You don't have to do this. I just want this to be, I want you guys to be able to understand
We probably won't deploy it, to be honest with you, because I'm just trying to learn the library.
everything here. All right, so back to item 1. And basically we have, we have the accordion item div, we have the header, and for the ID, for the header here, I don't think we actually need this for what we're doing, so we can get rid of that. Maybe we should have just typed it out, but that's fine, whatever. Then we have the button here, accordion button collapsed. We want to leave that. The target though, the target has to match this right here. Okay, so we have the button and then we have the div, and these have to match. So let's change this. We'll change this to question-1, and then we also want to change.
Sorry guys, I'll be right back. I'm gonna play
Death
Primogen.
by 1,000 microservices. The
For a minute.
software industry
I'll
is
be back in a
learning once
minute.
again, or learning once again that complexity kills. Yeah, it does. The Church of Complexity. There is a pretty well-known sketch in which an engineer is explaining to a project manager how an overly complicated maze of microservices works in order to get a user's birthday, and fails to do so anyways. The scene accurately describes the absurdity of the state of the current tech culture. We laugh, and yet bringing this up in a serious conversation is tantamount to professional heresy, rendering you borderline unhireable. So how did we get here? How did our aim become not addressing the task?
Okay, that is super interesting, and I definitely want to watch that video later because I know that microservices were the big thing, still kind of are, and yet I don't know, man. I feel as the world becomes more like as there are more like single developers out there, like a single developer does not want to work on a bunch of microservices. They need to be separated enough to work on well, but also, if it's too convoluted, and even you can't understand it, that's not good. So, I mean, don't separate things just for the sake of separation. Have a reason. Okay, sorry.
Course, we're going to talk about, how to locate it. And then for the content, or in the body here, I'm going to just get rid of this, and let's do lorem. We'll do lorem 50. Okay, so that's going to be the content down here. Now for the next item, you know what I'll do is I'll just copy the first item that I just put. So this ends here. So we're going to grab this. Is that right? No. Sorry, guys. I'm just grabbing the div with the accordion item class. And let's close that up. And then I'm going to just go to item 2, and I'm going to just replace all this. Actually, I'll just replace, yeah, so that's item 2. We'll paste that in, and then we have item 3, which ends right here. Let's paste that in. So now we should have 3 of the same questions. So let's go to item 2, and let's change the target. So this right here, we want to change that and that to 2, because this is question 2. And let's say, how much does it cost to attend? And we'll just leave the same body, that's fine. So item 3, let's say, what do I need to know? So like, what technologies, what skills do you need to know? And let's change question 1 here and here to question 3. So now we should have 3 separate questions that open separately, but I want to have a few more. So what I'll do, I think I still, yeah, my clipboard still has the first item. So I'm going to go under item 3. Let's say item 4. Oops. Paste that in, and let's see, we'll do how do I sign up? And
He's still
let's
doing the
change-
accordion, so
let's change, so we have question 1 right here. Let's grab that and that. This is going to be 4.
maybe we can just finish this based off of his code, not doing, not to be annoying or anything, but it is like more for beginners. All right, so question accordion. So we'll go down here. After this section, we'll write section dot questions. Oh no. Section dot p-5 ID equals questions. And we have a container. We have a H2, text center, MB4. Genial Landinger. Thank you for the follow. All right, that's our H2 class. Frequently asked questions, FAQs. All right, so now we have accordion item. So dot accordion. Wait, sorry. Accordion dot accordion flush. Okay, accordion item. Got to put the dot there so it's a div. dot nothing. Accordion header. Button. Button. Oops. Accordion. Oh, have I been spelling accordion wrong the whole time? Yeah. Accordion dash button dot collapsed. Type equals button. I'm going to copy the rest of the button. I don't want to miss anything. All right, now we need to do search and replace for the thing I got wrong. Oh God, I have no idea how to spell accordion. Replace it with accordion, copy. Could have picked something else to call it, you know? Yes. I'm sure, because I'm an idiot who can't spell. FAQs. Where exactly are you located? All right. Where exactly are you located? H2 class accordion header. Okay, accordion. Right under the button. H2. Div ID question 1. Div accordion body. H2 class accordion header. And then the buttons within that. And then the button end and then the H2 ends.
And then let's do, going to be item. I want you and 2 have 3 of the same questions.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to look like.
So let's go to item
Cool.
2 and let's change the target. So this right here, we want to change that and that to 2 because this is question 2. And let's say, how much does it cost to attend? And we'll just leave the same body, that's fine. So item 3, let's say, what do I need to know? So like, what technologies, what skills do you need to know? And let's change question 1 here and here to question 3. So now we should have 3 separate questions that open separately, but I want to have a few more. So what I'll do, I think I still, my clipboard still has the first item. So I'm going to go under item 3. Let's say item 4. Oops. Paste that in, and let's see, we'll do how do I sign up? And let's change, so we have question 1 right here. Let's grab that and that. This is going to be 4. And then let's do, what was the other question I had? I think I had 5. Will you help me find a job? So let's go under item 4, which ends right here. Item 5. Do you help me find a job? And then just change the target from 1 to 5. All right, so now we should have 5 questions. Good. So that's the frequently asked questions section with the accordion. Now we want to do the instructors. So this is going to be similar to like the cards we did above. So let's go under this entire section here. And let's give this an ID of instructors, so the menu goes to it, and then we'll give it a class of P-5 and also BG-primary, because we want it to have that blue background. And then inside there, let's do class of container. And then we'll have a heading. Let's do H2, we'll text center, and
So we did the accordion. I know I'm not doing everything he is. It's really just in the interest of time. I think I got the idea of what an accordion is, so I'm going to move on. This will look like a lot like the card section we had before. So we have a section with a padding of 5, a container, a row text center with a gap of 4, a column, and then a card, and then the same thing. So we'll copy this, because we can copy the section part. We're going to try this on our own, just for the hell of it. Okay, cool. So now you got this section down here. And in here we can create a column. D. Container. h2 dot text center dot text light MB-5. Type our instructors. I don't really like that. Oh, you know what? Actually, that's okay. All right, our instructors. Column MD 6, call large 3. Dot call dash MD dash 6 dot call dash LG dash 2 3. Card dot BG light card dot card body dot text center card dot card body dot text center. Okay. And then the image, it's going to copy this. Or, okay, img dot rounded circular dot mb dash 3. And the source is a freaking rando. Freaking rando. Yeah. Yeah. I can't do it. I can't do it like Thor. Yeah. Yeah. How is it? Is it good? Okay, so good start. I imagine we need to add text. Okay, card title. .mb3 Dot card dash text. John Lorem 10. Hey, that's a little better. Okay. Okay, then we got to put links in. I really don't understand why Prettier's not working. Java Prettier. It's funny. Try reinstalling it. Still an issue. I guess I'll just use the built-in one. I don't know what else to do. I don't feel like troubleshooting that right now. All right, it's actually P, paragraph. All right, here are the icons. Okay, cool. Column is what we want. Just guessing the URLs here. Let's say women. Women. Do they not have women? Okay, they do. They just don't have 11 of them. How many do they have? All right, that's cool. Okay, they do have 11. Okay, cool. Well, anyways, that works. Right? The pictures aren't very good on a big screen, but that's okay. It's just for practice. Okay, you can see how they stack. They stack well on a mobile screen. All right, this is looking pretty good. What else? Contact info and map. Footer.
All right, cool. So next we just have basically this contact with the map here, and we're going to use Mapbox for this. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but you do need to just sign up and get an API key. And then we have the footer, and then we have the modal up here, you know, when we click start enrollment. So those are the things we have left. So let's go down under this last section, and we'll go ahead and create, let's just say contact and map, and then let's do section P5, so padding 5, and then let's add a container class, and then in here we're going to have a row with gutter 4, and we want 2 columns that start on the medium screen, so let's say call dash MD, and then in here we're going to put an H2 with some classes. I just want to text center it. This is the contact info heading, so we'll do that, and we'll do MV4, and let's say contact info. Now I wanted to include a list group somewhere, and so I mean it doesn't look the greatest, this here. If you want to change this up, you can, but I wanted to have a list group because you probably use these pretty often. Like if you have sidebars with, I don't know, if it's a blog with like category links or something like that. So let's do a UL, and we're going to add list dash group. And I want this to be flush, so we're going to use list dash group dash flush. And let's also make it a little bigger, so I'm going to use lead as well. And then inside of a list group, each LI is going to have a class of list group dash item. And in here, let's put a span, because I want the label to be bold. So there's a class, you can do FW for font weight and
Be bold.
And in here we'll say main location. And then outside of the span, you can put, I don't know, I just put 50 Main Street, Boston, Mass.
Boston, Mass.
That. There we go. And then I'll just paste these in because it's just like the phone and email and stuff. It's all formatted the same way. So we just have another list group item with the enrollment phone, the student phone, the enrollment email, and the student email. So if we save that, it's going to look like that. Now for the...
There's a Main Street in Boston, right? Oh, maybe there's not. Chinatown, Main Street, Boston. Welcome to Chinatown, Main Street. That sounds like the name of the organization, which it is. There is one in Buffalo. Main Street. If you click, God fucking damn it. I'm so computer brained. Did they rename it? No, it's right here. I used to work on Main Street in Buffalo, and I am not kidding when I say the address was something along the lines of 123 Main Street. Main Street isn't even a big street in Buffalo. I mean, it is a big street. I feel like the city might have changed somewhat since I left. Oh, how much I would love to live in Canada, though. Oh, yeah. I would love Canada. I've been there. I've been to Buffalo Naval Park. Am I looking at pictures of Buffalo?
The second item, or for the second column, I should say, let's go under this one, and let's say call-md. And this is where I want to put the map. So what we need to do is go to Mapbox. If you want to do this, you want to go to mapbox.com, sign up. I think I'm already logged in here. Okay, and then you just need to get an access token. So you can do create a token. Don't use mine. I'm going to refresh it afterwards. And then you need to include, if we go up here to web, let's say use the Mapbox CDN, and we want to grab, let's see, we have a CSS file, which I'm going to grab first, and I'm going to put that up at the top. We'll go let's go right above our custom style sheet and below the Bootstrap stuff. So that's the CSS, and then I'm going to grab the script tag here, and let's put that down at the bottom. So we'll put that right on.
All right, I gotta be honest. I don't have a ton of use for embedding maps, so I think we'll skip that. Should we do the modal? I think we've got it. I think I've got the idea now. The biggest problem with this is I didn't have someone just sit down. I didn't just sit down and like look at what this shit actually meant, because there's so many abbreviations. That was probably what was throwing me off. I think I'm probably okay now, especially at that I know Emmet expressions. So I think we've got enough to where we can put together our website. I don't want to overdo this. There's no need to. The web development is a goal. Related to putting up a website. It's not like for the sake of my education. It's literally just so that I can put up a website for our business, which is where the real development happens, which is our game, Godot. Our game in Godot. So let's take a bit of a break. We'll watch a video, maybe Prime Gen or something, and then maybe we'll move on to the actual game, or maybe anyways, let's take a break for a minute and then decide what we're gonna do.
Into the Bootstrap.
Oh, let's do that. Since it's a premiere, I might as well ask the creator if he can give us permission to watch. So gaming on Mac is something I'm kind of interested in, and there's this guy, Andrew Tsai. He's like, I don't know how he's so committed to it, but like he's... Okay, he said it's fine. So... anyways, he's really into the gaming on Mac community. So, which is a surprisingly big one. And particularly, I think the future of gaming on Mac could be really great if Apple would get off their ass. Anyways, let's see what Andrew has to say.
So it's finally happened. Asahi Linux on Mac now has better OpenGL graphics support than Apple's own implementation on macOS. Yes, that's right. That means that Asahi Linux, that small, tiny, independent project dedicated to getting Linux working on bare metal on Apple's silicon hardware, now has surpassed Apple at their own game. Now, partly this is due to the fact that Apple abandoned the open source graphics support in preference for a proprietary Metal Graphics API. Apple decided to deprecate OpenGL, and right now macOS only supports OpenGL up to version 4.1. However, now the Asahi Linux team have achieved the impossible and have implemented drivers that are conformant to the latest OpenGL versions, passing over 100,000 tests to ensure correctness, adding their OpenGL 4.6 and ES 3.2 to the list. So what does this mean for Mac gamers? Well, right now, not a huge amount. Yes, in certain admittedly narrow tests where Asahi Linux runs rings around macOS's implementation of OpenGL 4.1. But the exciting part of this news is really about Asahi Linux's future. OpenGL 4.6 is but a stepping stone to a full implementation of the Vulkan graphics API. This is huge because many of the most popular games and emulators use Vulkan and currently can't be played on macOS, but could potentially be played on Asahi Linux in the future once Vulkan support is fully implemented. And furthermore, the Vulkan graphics API...
Alright, so that's the thing, right? The biggest reason you can't run games on Mac, especially right now, is because of the different architecture and the fact that technologies have not caught up to the ARM architecture, right? Because essentially, at the moment, the only person, right, the only company, the only computers that always use ARM chips besides phones are Macs, right? So if you're talking about PC gaming, even if you install Windows on a Mac, it's not going to work if it's an M1 and it's not the ARM version. So that was the biggest problem. Like in the past, you actually could game pretty well on Mac. Not great, but you could game reasonably well on Mac by using Boot Camp and installing Windows, or even with crossover. Now, it's very hard to do that because of the new architecture, even if it's been rewritten for the, even if like the emulation has been rewritten for the architecture, a lot of times the game just won't run. Like you can't run things on parallels like you used to. You still can't dual boot into Windows as far as I know. Apparently you can install Asahi Linux. I was a supporter of that project for a while. I think it's great to have a open operating system that can be installed on this machine. Now that I have my PC set up, maybe we'll try that. Maybe I'll try putting Asahi Linux on my Mac. Although, I don't know. It's I want to make sure that everything's backed up very well before trying something like that, because as much as I use this PC for gaming and streaming, it is not my main driver. Like my main driver is still my Mac. So I hesitate to do anything brash to that.
is also an important part of Proton, the compatibility layer which makes the Steam Deck SteamOS play Windows games so well. And if Vulkan could be implemented on Asahi Linux, then it could open up future support for Proton, and we could finally see Apple Silicon Mac hardware get game compatibility close to what the Steam Deck can achieve, including all of the anti-cheat exception games for Proton, for example games like Apex Legends, Halo Master Chief Collection, DayZ, etc. Now even if Vulkan support were eventually implemented, there are still other obstacles to overcome. For example, Asahi Linux is compiled to use 16K pages. If Proton-like compatibility is to happen, then there needs to be some kind of support for 4K pages, which is used by x86 64-bit games, which basically means all Windows games. Now, there are some solutions in the works for this problem.
It's kind of what I was saying. I don't have the vocabulary for it like he does, though.
I'm
He's
too much
amazing.
of a Linux noob to really understand what this means, but I know that the problem is being worked on and progress is extremely promising. So in this video today, I'm going to be going through a full tutorial on how to install Asahi Linux on your Apple Silicon Mac, how to set up the new OpenGL 4.6 drivers, and how to test out various games, including Minecraft, as well as Nintendo Switch emulation via Ryujinx, as well as other Linux ARM64 games, and compare their performance to macOS. And as always, I really encourage people who are invested in the future of Mac gaming to go to Markin's Patreon page. This is the main donation point for the Asahi Linux project. And just to temper your expectations, this is an operating system written without any documentation from Apple, where all the drivers had to be reverse engineered by a very small team, and where hardware support is a constant.
I hate that. Like, why? Why does Apple always have to do that? I don't get it. Like, I don't think it actually helps.
Moving target, with new Apple Silicon Macs being released every few months. Nevertheless, what the Asahi Linux team has achieved is absolutely astounding, so please make sure to support the project. So the first thing that we're going to do is to go to the asahilinux.org website.
Let's see how this works.
To in the description.
We're going to speed this up a little bit since we're not actually doing it.
So the first thing you should do is to double check that you have a supported device. So click on this device support list. Basically, if you have a device with an M1 or M2, basically these are currently supported. The M3 generation isn't supported yet, but will be in the future. And you can also check out some of the features that are available. Not all the features are going to be working. The USB-C displays aren't working. Thunderbolt 4 USB 4 is not working. Microphone and Touch ID are not working either. The other thing to be aware of is that this is...
Yeah. Nah. Like, you can't take away the microphone, right? Like, that's not going to work for me. This has to get to a point.
Very much a work in progress. So there's lots of things which aren't working at the moment. And you should also be aware that this is in development. So you might want to make sure that you have a backup of all of your data. So on your Mac, make sure that you have anything important
definitely. Please,
device.
God.
Make sure that there's nothing on this computer that you can't afford to lose. If you have any important information, just make sure it's backed up correctly. And then go ahead and move on to basically the first step. So I'm going to go onto the top right hand side on Spotlight. I'm going to type in the word terminal, and I'm going to open up a terminal window. So within this terminal window, what we're going to do is to copy and paste this terminal command here. So just click on this icon here to copy it into clipboard. And then within terminal, I'm going to right click or Command V and then paste this command here. So the other thing to be aware of is that we need to have enough space. So on your computer, if you go to general, you can check your storage here. Basically, you need about 80 gigabytes of space in total. So make sure you have that before we can move on to the next step. So now within terminal, what we're going to do is to enter this command and press return, and then it's going to start this download process. It's going to make this a bit bigger.
Okay.
So
how simple is it? I wonder. I bet it's complicated.
That you probably use to log into your computer. Just type that in. Just be aware that when you're typing in a password, you can't see anything here, but it's been typed in the background. It's invisible. Just press return, and that will enter the password for you there. Now it's asking us to press enter to continue. So press enter, saying collecting system information. This is our Mac. So this is the MacBook Pro 16-inch with the M1 Max chip, and basically this is a fresh installation. You can see here, this is our APFS volume. That's our system recovery volume. And basically what's asking us to do is that we need to resize the partition. So basically within your Mac, you have an APFS partition. If you look at it, this is all consumed basically by the macOS. And what we want to do is partition this so that Asahi Linux can take up a proportion of the internal solid state drive. So just type in R and then return to resize an existing partition. And then we need to determine what size we want to have. This is going to determine what percentage or how much space.
That's the other thing. I only have 1 terabyte on my Mac, and yeah, I'm not putting a Linux distribution on there that's going to take up a bunch of room, especially when it's experimental. Like, again, I'm so happy there are people like Andrew around, because I want to do this, but like, I've been down the rabbit hole with Linux before, and like, I need instructions.
Space macOS is actually available to use. So I have a 1 terabyte drive here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 500 gigabytes. So it's basically 500 gigabytes to macOS and then 450 something to Asahi Linux. That's plenty. But this really depends on the size of your solid state drive. So you need about 80 gigabytes minimum for Asahi Linux. So what I'll do is either use the minimum command, the min command here, or just type in either percentage or actual size that you want your Mac drive to be. So I'm going to type in 500 GB and press return. And it says here, your system may appear to freeze during the resize. This is normal. Just continue until the process completes. Press Y here and press return. So this is basically doing all the work in the background to change the APFS drive so that it can accommodate our new Asahi Linux drive here. So you can kind of see here that it's working in the background. The macOS side has already partitioned this in half already, so that the macOS side has 500 gigabytes. It's really up to you how much space you want to dedicate to the Asahi Linux partition. So just after a few minutes, it just says here resize complete, press enter to continue. So let's press return, collecting partition information. And now it's saying what we can do now is we install an OS into the free space, resize an existing partition, or quit without doing anything. So now that we have the partition ready, we're going to press F and then press return. So the one that I'm going to be choosing today is Asahi Remix 39 with KDE Plasma. So that's a desktop user interface environment. So I'm going to select one and then press return. So how much space should be allocated to the new OS?
He said KDE. Okay.
So I'm going to enter the word max to take up all of this space that we've already allocated to the new partition, press return. So it's asking us to name our partition. I'm just going to call this one Asahi, press return. So all of this stuff is happening, creating a new stub for macOS name Asahi. And now it's basically downloading and installing the operating system Asahi Linux, Fedora with KDE Plasma, this computer. Now it's saying it's setting up the recovery volume. So you can see that this is out of the EFI partition.
Is this all you have to do to install it? Because if that's true, then I could give it a shot.
Boot partition
After a backup.
Okay, so after that's done, it's asking us for a password. So just type in your Mac username password again, and we're going to press return. And then now it's setting the new operating system Asahi Linux as the default boot volume. So it's saying here installation successful. It's asking us if we want to report or install. So let's just provide data to the Asahi Linux team. So here it's saying to be able to boot into the OS, you need to complete one more step. So I'm going to press return. So it says here we need to follow these steps. 1, wait for 25 seconds. Press and hold the power button to power on the system. Release it to get into the startup options menu. Wait for the volume list to appear and then choose Asahi. Once the Asahi Linux installer screen appears, follow the prompts. So just make sure to make a note of these steps. And here we're going to press return to continue here. So I'm going to press enter. I'm going to wait for the computer to fully shut down. So I'm going to give this 25 seconds for it to completely power off. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down the power button until we get...
Okay. If it's that simple, maybe. Maybe.
the startup menu screen coming up. So I'm going to press this, hold this down. And it says here, continue holding full startup options. So just let that finish. And now we can let go because it just says loading startup options and we're ready to move on. So now we have the option here. We can select the Asahi installer here. We can use the keyboard as well. Select it and press return. So I'm just going to make this window bigger so you can read it. So it says here, you'll see some messages advising you that you are changing your security level of your system. These changes only apply to your Asahi Linux install and are necessary to install a third-party OS. So the important thing is that the security level of your macOS install will not be affected. So this is going to prompt us for our login credentials twice, and these are from our macOS account. So here I'm going to press enter to continue. So now what we're going to do is to type in the password for our user on our Mac. Again, you won't be able to see anything until you've typed it in. Press return. So it's saying here, local policy update is in progress. Please wait. So now it's saying here, by setting a custom boot object, you'll be putting your system into permissive security. Or if you want to do this, press Y, press return. We're going to type in our username and of our computer, and then type in the password on macOS side, press return. So now it's saying here, installation is complete. Press enter to reboot. So you can see here the Asahi Linux turning up here, and then there's the commands here on the top left. Now we have the Asahi Linux login screen ready right now. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the standard setup. Select some British English, press next. Time zone is London, press next. And then now we set up our username and password, press next, and then press set up, and then alter.
Okay, all right, that's cool. I'll admit it. That's fucking cool.
The screen doesn't quite look correct. I think there's some color space issue.
If they got this to a stable version and Apple was clear that they weren't going to do anything to break it, then that would be kind of cool.
Viewing this through HDMI on my MacBook Pro with the M1 Max chip. Rest assured, this actually looks fine when viewing this on the Mac screen. So one of the first things that you're going to do when you actually have Asahi Linux set up is actually go into the start menu here and do a refresh of all of the drivers. So you want to go into the start menu and then type in the word console, K-O-N. This is basically the equivalent of terminal on Fedora. And basically within this window, we want to use this command sudo dnf upgrade. So dnf is basically the Fedora method of installing packages. And this is basically going to upgrade and refresh any kind of drivers that you already have installed. So here,
right.
Press return.
Makes sense.
Our sudo password, press return. And then this is going to download and install any kind of updates or changes that have been made. This also includes anything that you've already installed. For example, I just installed Prism Launcher, and that's updating too. Here's asking us whether we want to proceed. Press yes. We're basically upgrading all these things, but if you're running this for the first time, then it's going to basically download all of the updated graphics drivers, including OpenGL 4.6. So if you're anything like me and you want to test out OpenGL 4.6 on Asahi Linux, then unfortunately there are not many games which actually work on the ARM64 chip under Linux and are compatible with Asahi Linux. However, one option...
Right, yeah, that's the thing, is just like, I think even fewer games will run on Linux on ARM than will run on Mac on ARM, right? Because there are like native builds of Mac on ARM games, even big ones like Baldur's Gate 3.
Option that does work pretty well is Minecraft. So today I'm just going to show you quickly how to install Minecraft via the Prism launcher. So
it's just like, it's not worth the effort to put games on Mac because Apple makes it artificially difficult to, you know, develop software for their platform. At least, you know, approved software, like a signed software, you know? It's a huge pain in the ass. And when we're talking about games, you know?
a link in the description for the prismlauncher.org website, and then under the download section I'm going to scroll down and find the Fedora section here, which contains the console commands that we need in order to install Prism Launcher. So at the time of recording, the latest stable release isn't actually working on Asahi Linux. We actually need to be using the Prism Launcher nightly. If you need to update or overwrite a previous install, you need this --allow erasing command at the end as well, and then just press Y and return in order to actually download Prism Launcher. So once that's done, we basically just go up to the start menu in Fedora, and then we type in the word Prism, and then basically we do a standard Prism Launcher install, go through all of these setup process, check your language. We'll select an ARM64 optimized version of Java. You might want to tweak the amount of RAM, then all you need to do is to add your Microsoft account, create an instance, and install any mods that you might want. So once we're in the game, we can press the F3 key, or you might need to use the function F3, and then you can see all of the kind of back-end details. But here it gives a little bit of insight onto the back end of how this game is working. In this section here, you can see that this is OpenGL 4.6 core profile. So basically, we're making good use of the latest version of OpenGL that's compatible on any Apple Silicon Mac hardware. However, the real interesting test is showing how Asahi Linux compares against Minecraft running on macOS. So on the right, we have Asahi Linux with OpenGL 4.6, and on the very same hardware, we have the macOS version of Minecraft running OpenGL 4.1. They're both using ARM64 versions of Java 17. We're running at 4K resolution using Sodium, Iris, render distance 20, simulation distance 12, and no shaders are being used. What's kind of surprising is that in this particular test, Asahi Linux is pretty much trouncing the macOS version with substantially higher frame rates on average. Like I said, this is on exactly the same.
Wow, it looks a lot better. Well, I'll give it that.
Same hardware, the same mods, the same settings, same everything. And this might possibly be due to the fact that we are using a higher level of OpenGL. However, if we go to more intensive scenes, so this is a benchmark map. This part
Oh, yeah. I see more color over here, but I see more detail over here, I think.
is probably a lot more CPU intensive. So that's probably where the bottleneck is, and which is why we're getting very similar performance on both ends. Not really enough difference to really say whether Asahi Linux or macOS runs this game better. However, if we turn on shaders, for example, here we're using complementary reimagine shaders. I've got the profile set to
I think that's right, isn't it? Aren't I seeing more detail on this side, but more color on this side?
low. Shaders tend to be a lot more GPU intensive. So you can see here that the macOS side is performing way better than Asahi Linux. This just goes
Is performed way better than Asahi Linux. Yeah. Okay, that makes
show
sense.
that there is a lot of performance left on the table for Asahi Linux, especially when it comes to the GPU side.
Oh, because the frame rates.
This is still really impressive considering the fact that all of these drivers, all of this work has been done by reverse engineering. There's been no documentation coming from Apple. This is all work completed by a very small team. It's constantly working and improving Asahi Linux. For example, Alyssa, one of the Asahi Linux developers, has mentioned that they're already working on a new register allocator, which improves performance on some workloads by 10 times. So we can look forward to some pretty big improvements in performance as time goes on. So this also extends to Nintendo Switch emulation using the emulator Ryujinx, which doesn't work too badly on a select few titles. So this is Rayman Legends Definitive Edition. Many games that I tried it wouldn't actually boot, but one that did surprise me was the Super Mario Odyssey, which seems to run okay, but with plenty of graphical issues and a lot of slowdown as well. A lot of the performance issues are likely going to be fixed in a future update to Asahi Linux, and it's being worked on right now. I also tested out Mario Kart Wii running through the emulator called Dolphin, which ran okay, and also God of War Goes to Sparta running through PPSSPP. Performance isn't even close.
I'll probably give it a little bit more time, but it is cool that Asahi is relatively easy to install now, like with a script and everything. It's pretty cool.
To what you could get on the macOS side running the same emulators, but like I said, fixes for these issues are being worked on right now and could even potentially eventually surpass the macOS performance. There's also a plethora of other games you can test, for example, these native ARM64 Linux games, which are free. For example, this is the strategy game 0AD, and here I'm playing the game Xenotic. I'm actually playing online. This is a free multiplayer shooter based on the Quake engine, and only utilizes OpenGL 2.1, but it's cool to see that this works. Anyway, it's really exciting to see what's now possible through Asahi Linux on the Mac, and I'm really looking forward to future development on this project. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
That's good. Guys, give Andrew a sub if you haven't already. He's awesome. That's a niche community. That's a niche kind of thing. And he's doing really good with it. All right. I'm just looking through some stuff here, seeing what might be interesting. Let's look at Prime. Gemini won't show C++ to underage kids. Do not use HTML self-closing tags. Interview with senior Rust developer. Remote work 1. Probably. You're addicted to cloud compute. Oh, I wanted to see the 1,000 microservices one. Let's watch that. Death by 1,000 microservices.
Don't have separate. Death by 1,000 microservices. The software industry is leading once again, or learning once again that complexity kills. Yeah, it does. The Church of Complexity. There is a pretty well-known sketch in which an engineer is explaining to a project manager how an overly complicated maze of microservices works in order to get a user's birthday, and fails to do so anyways. The scene accurately describes the absurdity of the state of the current tech culture. We laugh, and yet bringing this up in a serious conversation is tantamount to professional heresy, rendering you borderline unhireable. So how did we get here? How did our aim become not addressing the task at hand, but instead setting a pile of...
Okay, that's hyperbole. It's a buzzword, okay? Like, the idea that it makes you unhireable to be like against microservices is really silly.
Cash on fire by solving problems we don't have. The perfect storm. There are a few things in recent history that may have contributed to the current state of things. First, a whole army of developers writing JavaScript for the browser started self-identifying as full stack. Dude, this is single-handedly the...
Dude, this guy's mad. Okay. All right. The guy who wrote this is mad. Let's read this. This will be interesting. All right. There's a pretty well-known sketch in which an engineer is explaining... Okay, he just read that part. Fuck it. I'll read it anyway. Oh, it was updated a few days ago. There's a pretty well-known sketch in which an engineer is explaining to the project manager how an overly complicated maze of microservices work in order to get a user's birthday, and fails to do so anyway. The scene actually describes the absurdity of the state of current tech culture. We laugh, yet bringing it up in a serious conversation is tantamount to professional heresy, rendering you borderline unhireable. I already said, I think that's hyperbole. How did we get here? How did our aim become not addressing the task at hand, but instead setting a pile of cash on fire by solving problems we don't have? Oh, I think this trigger warning may not have been in here before. See that? Because no one's more easily triggered than developers, so that's for sure. And if you're mad about it, just proving my point. All right, there are a few events in recent history that it may have contributed to the current state of things. First, a whole army of developers writing JavaScript for the browser started self-identifying as full stack. Okay, that's kind of mean. It's kind of unnecessarily mean. Trigger warning. Some people understandably got salty when I name-checked JavaScript and Node.js as a source of a problem, but my point was really more about the dangers of hermetically sealed software ecosystems that seem hell-bent on relearning the lessons that we had just finished learning. We ran into complexity wall before we hit reset. Otherwise, we'd still be using Cobra and SOAP. These airtight developer bubbles are a wrecking ball on the entire industry, and it takes a full decade to swing. You know what, though? If you're worried about AI, don't worry, guys. There's so much JavaScript code out there. It's probably, there's going to be work forever. So. All right. And then some SETI FANG veterans stared, merging into a river of startups. Wait. Started self-identifying as full stack, diving into server development and asynchronous code. JavaScript is JavaScript, right? What difference does it make what you create using it? The user interfaces, servers, games, embedded systems, right? Node was still kind of a learning project of one person, and early JavaScript was deeply problematic choice for server development. Pointing this out to still green server-side developers usually result in a lot of huffing and puffing. This is all they knew. After all, the world outside of Node is effectively did not exist. Node is the only way, and so it was the genius of the stubborn, dogmatic thinking that we're dealing with today. It's kind of funny. We'll go through the rest of the article, but the attitude of the author of the article is like, I don't know, man. It's kind of annoying. I'm interested to see the actual points he tries to make. Because sometimes people get really mad and have like a really good intro, but then like their points just fall like flat on their face. So let's see what he's got. And then a steady stream of FANG veterans started merging into a river of startups, mentoring the newly minted and highly impressionable young JavaScript server-side engineers. Dang. Okay. The apostles of the church complexity would assertively claim how they did things over at Google was unquestionable and correct, even if it made no sense given the context and size. What do you mean we don't have separate user preference services? That will just not scale, bro. But it is easy to blame veterans and newcomers for all of this. What else is happening? Oh yeah, easy money. What do you do when you're flush with venture capital? You don't go for revenue, surely. On more than one occasion, I received an email from management asking everyone to be in the office, tidy up their desks, and look busy as a clouder of Patagonia vests was about to be paraded through the space. Investors needed to see explosive growth, but not in profitability. No, they just needed to see how quickly a company could hire ultra-expensive software engineers to do something. So this is the we're hiring too many useless developers take. You know, they don't know. Try our service, streamline code review. Okay. And now that you have these developers, what do you do with them? Well, they could build a simpler system that's easier to grow and maintain, or they could conjure up monstrous constellation of microservices that no one really understands. Microservices, the new way of writing scalable software. Are we going to pretend that the concept of distributed systems never existed? Let's skip over the whole parsing of nuances about microservices not being real distributed systems. Okay, back in the days when the tech industry was not such a bloated farce, distributed systems were respected, feared, and generally avoided. Reserved only as the weapon of last resort for particularly gnarly problems. Everything with a distributed system becomes more challenging and time-consuming. Development, debugging, deployment, testing, resilience, but I don't know, maybe it's all super easy now because tooling. Yeah, this article comes off as typical kind of arrogant developer. Like he's like describing arrogant developers while also being arrogant. So that's kind of funny. Okay. Even though I somewhat agree with the complexity kills idea, there's no standard tooling for microservices-based development. There's no common framework. Working on distributed systems has gone only marginally easier in the 2020s. The Dockers and Kubernetes of the world did not magically take away inherent complexity of a distributed setup. Sure, that's true. I love referring to this summary of 5 years of startup audits, and it is packed with common sense conclusions. The startups we audited that are now doing best usually almost brazenly keep it simple approach to engineering. Cleverness for cleverness sake was aboard. On the flip side, companies where we were like, whoa, these folks are smart as hell, for the most part kind of faded. Generally, the major foot gun that got a lot of places in trouble was premature move to microservices architectures that relied on distributed computing and messaging heavy designs. Another thing I'm going to say is that working on a microservice, at least in my experience, is not very fun. And here's what I mean by that. If you are working on a microservice, you are working on a small piece of a really large system that is sort of like, you might know what that one piece does, but you might not see its impact on the whole system, right? And that's a very frustrating place for a developer to be. Now, I do data analytics and I run the scripts. I write the scripts, I run the scripts, and they either give me the output I expect or they don't. And I can see that. And then once I've got everything tweaked right, I can give it to the client, and the client can use it to do what they do, you know? And I know what they do, and I know the impact that my work is having, and that's really important. do not underestimate the power of knowing the impact of your work, because when you're working on something and you can't see the bigger picture, it's a recipe for just misery at work. I'm speaking from personal experience. All right, the audit revealed an interesting pattern where many startups experience a sort of collective imposter syndrome while building straightforward, simple performance systems. This is a stigma attached not only to starting out with microservices on day one, no matter the problem. Everybody's doing microservices, yet we have a single Django monolith maintained by just a few engineers and a MySQL instance. What are we doing wrong? The answer is almost always nothing. Okay, I was... Django mention! By the way, you can do a Django microservice. If you want to add a service to a Django monolith, it's actually fairly easy. You create a new app, right? And maybe you have different teams working on different apps, and those are like, separation of responsibilities. But it still all fits together under a Django project. Likewise, it is often that seasoned engineers experience hesitation and inadequacy in today's tech world. That's true. The good news is that no, it's probably not you. It's common for teams to pretend like they're doing web scale, hiding behind libraries, ORMs, and cache. Confident in their expertise, they crushed that leet code, yet they may not even be aware of database indexing basics. You are operating in a sea of unjustified overconfidence, waste, and Dunning-Kruger. So who is really the imposter here? It's very often that seasoned engineers experience hesitation and inadequacy. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is like a tendency to always use like the latest thing, or like make sure you can incorporate the buzzwords. Okay, there's nothing wrong with a monolith. The idea that you cannot grow without a system that looks like an infamous slide of Afghanistan war strategy is a myth. I've never seen this before. Oh, is this not a map of the world? I thought it was a map of the world. Is this real? Because that's crazy. Dropbox, Twitter, Netflix, GitHub, Instagram, Shopify, Stack Overflow, these companies all started out on monolithic code bases. Many have monolithic as their core to this day. Stack Overflow makes it a point of pride of how little hardware they need to run their massive site. Shopify is still on a Rails monolith, and leveraging the tried and true REST to billions of tests. See, okay, so this is why I'm using Django. Okay? The reason I'm using it is because, it's got a lot of that stuff included. You just have to know how to configure it correctly. It's scalable for sure. Like, you can have massive Django projects. Even the way I'm doing it, where it is like a full monolith, where the front end is in the same project as the back end, you can still change that later, right? You can take the models you've already made, you can write serializers, and you can go and plug it into a whatever the fuck you want, React, Angular, later. If you want to change the entire look of your website, you could develop a React app and develop the necessary API and then connect it up. And like I said, if you want to assign teams to work on specific Django apps, to have a separation of responsibilities, that's good, but they're all under the umbrella of the Django app, so they have to talk to each other about how their stuff works so that you can use their libraries within your app and shit like that. You can even have people who write libraries for the particular app or for the particular repo. So you can sort of imagine like a Django site or even a Django SaaS, right? Software as a service, starting out in Django and scaling quite well, right? Starting out in a simple Django configuration, and then you can change it later to make it more performant and scale. I'm a big Django fan, guys. Django and Godot, those are my things. All right, WhatsApp went supernova with their Erlang monolith and a relatively small team. How? WhatsApp consistently keeps engineering staff small to only about 50 engineers. Individual engineering teams are also small, consist of 1 to 3, and they have a great deal of autonomy. Yeah, I think that's also true. The best positions I've had are ones where I knew the impact of my work, but I also had a lot of autonomy. For instance, when the goal is clear, and your boss has kind of set the parameters in which you have to meet that goal, I don't need a whole lot of management unless I'm having a problem, right? Like, if you're like, we need this program to produce this kind of output, that's a lot to go on. And then it's like, you need to use this technology, start with these scripts, start with this data, and all that. And as long as the goal is clear and the scope is clear, then I'm usually doing pretty well. Where I've struggled is when the scope is not clear or the scope is very small and I can't see the impact of the work I'm doing. It is just devastating to morale, and I don't think I'm unique in that respect. I've heard other people talk about that too. Understanding how the 8 hours you spend every day is actually making a real impact is hugely important. If you don't have that, you're going to lose morale, and it's going to be very hard just to get through the day. Okay. Don't solve problems you don't have. It's a simple question. What problem are you solving? Is it scale? How do you know how to break it all up for scale and performance? Do you even have enough data to show you what needs to be a separate service and what? Yes, this is a very good point. Okay, so if you have a small website and not a lot of users, how are you going to know how breaking it up is going to benefit you? It's like they're just breaking it up for the sake of it. Okay. Yeah. And the truth is that most companies will never reach the massive size that will actually require building a true distributed system. Cosplaying Amazon and Google without their scale, expertise, and endless resources is likely just an egregious waste of time. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think this has a lot more to do with the large companies kind of advocating for this kind of stuff than it does like just JavaScript being a thing. I think you could write a monolith in JavaScript. That's fine. Like, on the other hand, you could just use Django. But separate, but API. Trying to shove distributed topology into your company structure is a noble effort, but it almost always backfires. It's a common approach to break up the problem into smaller pieces and then solve those one by one. So the thinking goes, if you break up one service into multiple ones, everything becomes easier. The theory is sweet and elegant. Yeah, the problem is, like, microservice teams might not be in a position where they can talk to each other. The theory is sweet and elegant, each microservice being maintained rigorously by a dedicated team, walled off behind beautiful backward-compatible versioned API. In fact, this is so solid, you rarely even have to communicate with that team, as if the microservice was maintained by a third-party vendor. It's simple, yeah. Nothing can go wrong there. If that doesn't sound familiar, it's because it rarely happens. In reality, our Slack channels are flooded with messages from teams communicating about releases, bugs, configuration updates, breaking changes, and even PSAs. Everyone needs to be on top of everything all the time, and if that wasn't great, it's normal for one already slammed team to be half-ass multiple. It's normal for one already slammed team to half-ass multiple microservices instead of doing a great job on a single one, often changing ownership as people come and go. In order to win the race, we don't build one good race car, we build a fleet of shitty golf carts. That's a good one. For sure. I mean, this is true. For sure. Okay, I'm glad I'm not crazy, because honestly, when I first heard of microservices, I'm like, okay, I kind of get that, but like, doesn't that have its own problems? What you lose. There are multiple pitfalls to building microservices, and often that minefield is either not fully appreciated or simply ignored. Teams spend months writing highly customized tooling and learning lessons not related at all to the core project. Here are some often overlooked aspects. Say goodbye to dry. Yeah. Because I guess you're not technically repeating yourself, but somebody else could be repeating you. After decades of teaching developers to write don't repeat yourself code, it seems we just stopped talking about it altogether. Microservices by default are not dry. Every service is stuffed with redundant boilerplate. Very often, the overhead of such plumbing is heavy, and the size of the microservice is small, that the average instance of a service has more service than product. So what about the common code that can be factored out? Have a common library? How does the common library get updated? Keep different versions everywhere. Force updates regularly, creating dozens of pull requests across all repository. Keep it all in a monorepo? That comes with its own set of problems. Allow for some code duplication. Forget it. Each team gets to reinvent the wheel every time. Every company going this route faces three choices. There are no good ergonomic options. You have to choose your own version of the pain. Developer ergonomics will crater. Developer ergonomics is the friction and the amount of effort a developer must go through in order to get something done, be it working on a new feature, resolving a bug. With microservices, an engineer has to have the mental map of the entire system in order to know what services to bring up for any particular task, what teams to talk to, whom to talk to, and what about. The you have to know everything before you do anything principle. How do you keep on top of it? Spotify, a multi-billion-dollar company, I almost said $1,000,000,000 company. A multi-billion-dollar company spent probably not negligible internal resources to build Backstage, software for cataloging its endless system into microservices. Right, when you have a microservice to manage your microservices. That should at least give you a clue that this game is not for everyone. The price of the ride is high, so what about tooling? The not Spotify's of the world's left with McGravering their own solutions, robustness, and portability, of which you can probably guess. And how many teams have actually streamlined the process of starting a YAS? This includes developer privileges. Yeah, all this stuff. All this stuff is a pain in the ass. And you can ask a million people what the process is, and it's really hard to get a bird's eye view of what's going on. Integration tests. LOL. Yeah. No, a monolith doesn't mean better code. What about just services? Why do your services need to be micro? What's wrong with just services? Some startups have gone as far to create a service for each function. And yes, isn't that just like Lambda is a valid question? This gives you an idea of how far the unchecked cargo cult is. Yeah. What do we do? Starting with a monolith is an obvious choice. A pattern that could also work in many interested is trunk and branches, where the main meat and potatoes monolith is helped by branch services. A branch can be one that takes care of a clearly identifiable and separately scalable load. A CPU-hungry image resizing service makes way more sense than a user registration service. Or do you get so many registrations per second that it requires an independent horizontal scaling? But it's not web scale. What will you do when your Rails monolith hits max capacity and you can't scale your company beyond? Checks notes. A $94 million market cap. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Right? And like I said, Django makes this easy, man. You just install Python libraries, and then on top of that, you install Django apps. You can install third-party Django apps. You can install Django apps that other people have built, and you could have services like that. So we do have something like this in Django where it's like, oh, you should make a separate Django app for every like type of thing you have. Not if it's just you, man. Not if it's just you. Make it organized. Comments are important. And if you need to start separating out, make sure that the problem arises before the solution. Right? If you find yourself thinking, maybe I should be separating this out more, make sure you go that extra step and ask, why? Why do I think that? Is it actually important? Because it may not be. So I mostly agree with this article. I don't think we should throw shades at JavaScript developers, though they are less fragile than Java developers, so I guess that's good. Let's see, what does he say?
Beautiful wife, beautiful wife. Look at that. She made me a little bit of eggies, little toast, little fork. What a wonderful wife. Everyone is doing microservices, yet we have a single Django monolith maintained just by a few engineers in my squeal instance. What are we doing wrong? Nothing. It's okay to start there.
Yeah.
Misogyny. What? I am shocked. Okay, so I kid you not. So when this happened, when I was called a misogynist, the response was, why are you afraid of women or something this? Why are you a misogynist? And I responded with, don't worry, I think the same thing of men too. And then they accused me of being like a misanthrope or something, someone who's afraid or distrusting of all humans. And I said, I don't think you know what that word even means. And then, of course, that's when I got dragged in with the whole wife bringing me food. I just genuinely appreciate it. And she's beautiful, lovely, super smart, talented, and runs a bunch of crap. So, F you, wherever you're at. Thank you, beautiful wife. A misanthropist? Yeah. So stupid. Anyways, the answer is almost nothing. Likewise, it's common for a seasoned engineer to experience hesitation and inadequacy in today's tech world. And the good news is that no, it's probably not you. It's common for teams to pretend like they're doing web scale, hiding behind libraries, ORMs, and cache, confident in their expertise. They crust that lead code, yet they may have not even been aware of databases, aware of database indexing basics. If you haven't indexed your own database at least once, you should. You are operating in a sea of unjustified overconfidence, waste, and Dunning-Kruger. So who is really the imposter here? There's nothing wrong with a monolith. The idea that you can't grow without a system that looks like the infamous diagram of Afghanistan war strategy is largely a myth. Yeah, that seems about a proper war strategy here. Dropbox, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Shopify, Stack Overflow, Netflix, they didn't say that. These are companies and others started out as monolithic code bases. Many have monolith at their core to this day. Stack Overflow makes it a point of pride how little hardware they need to run.
He might mention it, but isn't Netflix still a monolith? And doesn't everybody have commit privileges to main or something?
Massive site. Shopify is still a Rails monolith. It sucks. Leveraging the tried and true risque to process billions of tasks. WhatsApp went supernova with their Erlang monolith and 50 engineers. How? It's actually 32 engineers. This sounds like somehow... Oh, they must have hired 18 since the other article I read. WhatsApp constantly keeps the engineering staff small to about only 50 engineers. Individual engineering teams are small, consisting of 1 to 3 engineers, and a team are each given a great deal of autonomy. In terms of service, what app prefers to use smaller number of servers and vertically scale each server to the highest extent possible? I like this approach actually quite a bit. I do like this quite a bit. Instagram was acquired for billions with a crew of 12. I mean, I also don't like this part because Facebook just wanted to make millions, and they knew how they were going to.
Yeah, Facebook just overpaid.
Right? Well, I mean, that's the thing. You don't necessarily need to engineer everything to the maximum. I'm taking a bite. Let's see, and do you imagine Threads was an effort involved a whole meta campus? No, they followed the Instagram model. This is the entire Threads team. It took that many people to copy Twitter's open source code base? First, claiming that your particular problem requires a massively complicated distributed system and an open office stuffed to the gills with turbo geniuses is just crossing over into arrogance rather than brilliance. Don't solve problems you don't have. Okay, I like this. It's a simple question. What problems are you solving? Is it scale? How do you know to break it all up for scale and performance? Do you have enough data to show what needs to be separated services and why? Distributed systems are built for size and resilience. Can your system scale and be resilient at the same time? What happens if one of the services go down and comes to a crawl? Just scale it up? Yes? Well, that's a great question. What about other services? What about automatic canary analysis? How often are you releasing? How are you doing staging versus production? Services will get flooded with load. Do you have a war game? The endless permutations of things that can and will go wrong? Is there back pressure? Everyone's favorite phrase. Circuit breakers, queues, jitter, sensible timeouts on every endpoint. Is there default value returnables? We call it a blue service. Are there foolproof guards to make sure simple changes do not bring everything down? The knobs you need to be aware of and tune are endless. And they are all specific to your system's.
But I mean, this stuff is real, right? Like even with a simple app, you have to think about some of this stuff. But it just gets more unnecessarily complicated if you start using microservices before you need to. That's it.
Particular signature of usage and traffic. This is a great statement of just how complicated these things can become, especially when you have 10 users. You have 10 users, just put it on a machine. Just put it on a machine, okay? One simple shared resource, $5 a month, the same price as it is the sub to your boy right here. You can get a machine, and you'll be able to serve 10,000 users on that thing. Stop! The truth is that almost most companies never reach that massive size that will actually require building a true distributed system. You are cosplaying Amazon and Google without their scale, expertise, and endless resources. It is very likely just an egregious waste of money and time. Religiously follow all the steps from this article called 10 Morning Habits of Very Successful People is not going to make you a billionaire. The only thing harder than distributed systems is bad distributed systems. That is such a great statement. 90% of all companies in the world could probably just be a monolith running against a primary DB cluster with DB backups, some caches, and proxies, and be done with it. For 10% of the companies that hit planet scale, no pun intended here, Sam, it's going to be an art figuring this out. Fair.
I'd like to see what he was
argue that 90% of companies don't even need most of the things he even
responding
said there.
to.
You just need DBs, backups, and a monolith. You don't even need some caches and proxies. You probably don't even need any of that. But each team, but separate, but API. Trying to solve the distributed topology of your company structure is a noble effort, but it almost always backfires. It is a common approach to break up a problem into smaller pieces and then solve those one by one. So the thinking goes, if you break up one service into multiple ones, everything becomes easier, right? The theory is sweet and elegant. Each microservice is being maintained rigorously by a dedicated team, walled off behind a beautiful backward-compatible versioned API. In fact, this is all so steely that you rarely even have to communicate with that team, as if the microservice was maintained by a third-party vendor. It's that simple. It's simple. If that doesn't sound familiar, that's because this rarely happens. Oh, you don't recognize that? Yeah, neither do I. I definitely don't recognize that one at all. In reality, our Slack channels are flooded with messages from teams communicating about releases, bug configuration updates, breaking changes, PSAs, and everyone needs to be on top of everything all the time. If this wasn't great, it's normal for one already slammed team to half-ass multiple microservices instead of doing a great job on a single one. This is another reality, is you rarely have one team, one microservice.
See, that probably would have been a good answer to the question that Elon Musk was asked and acted like a baby when not answering. He was asked, or he said, you know, we need to rebuild this from the ground up. And then someone was like, why? What are you trying? What's the problem you were trying to solve? And he couldn't answer. And I don't know much about Twitter's architecture, but if you're laying off that many people and planning on simplifying the system, a monolith might work. A monolith probably would work better, than trying to have skeleton teams running each microservice. So maybe that would have been a good idea before firing all those people, is have a team work on a monolith. Not that I am okay with how many people he fired. I think that's kind of fucked up. But, that's an answer to that question. We need to rewrite the system. Okay, why? Well, a good reason might be to switch to a more service-oriented architecture or a more monolith architecture. Just food for thought. All right. I have to go get my son ready for school. Thank you to everyone who's joined today. We're gonna find someone to raid here real quick, and then we'll be on our way. I will be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Well, the person I was about to raid is about to leave, so they are also. How did she end up exactly ending it at the same time as me? I don't think you need to get that much opinion from people about who to raid. Anyways, we'll just raid Pirate Software since I was going to raid me Magatron She's another software developer on this platform, but she is going off stream now, so we'll just raid Pirate Software. I don't really have anybody else to raid.